Welcome to a special episode of the Pedestrian Podcast. This week, myself, Stuart Court, and Adam Nathan are joined by a very special guest, a Purdue Boilermaker, a 2008 third-round pick, Detroit Lion, and most prominently for this pod, a former Seahawk, Pro Bowler, and Super Bowl 48 champion, defensive end Cliff Avril. Welcome to the Pedestrian Podcast.
Man, thank you guys for having me.
We massively appreciate you taking the time to jump on and chat to us.
Yeah, I don't think you need to thank us for having you, Claire. I think if we're going to do it that way, then I think you will probably thank you. Don't worry about
that. No, I'm just grateful. You know what? I don't take it for granted. You know what I mean? Like, people want to talk to me from time to time, so I appreciate it. You know.
So how's the lockdown situation over there treating you and yours?
No, I mean, other than, the wife going a little stir crazy a little bit as far as for being in the house. But overall, though, it's been great. You know, I've kind of looked at it, from a positive standpoint. It just allows me to spend more time with the kids, more time with the wife, pour into them a little bit more. But also it made me realize and notice that, people spend more time with your kids than you do. And that's a problem. You know what I mean? You start thinking about teachers, coaches, all that. Like, people are spending more time with your kids more than you. So it just gave me a little bit of time to reflect on that and make sure I don't allow that anymore.
Yeah.
Can you see this changing how you do stuff in the future?
I think so. Again, going back to the kids and the wife, but also, just from a business standpoint, like over this last 3 months, I've been able to get so much done, but at my own pace, you know what I mean? And that's good. So just being able to understand how to prioritize things and being able to get multiple things done at once, it's definitely helped out.
Cool. So before we get to your Seahawk years, just go back. Purdue were a team which obviously had a really impressive 2018 run there, more stealing a few shows during the season. But we've seen the Seahawks this year, especially this year with the current situation, pick players who have played from big schools or have that experience in big game atmosphere. Obviously, during your collegiate career, you played against Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame on a pretty annual basis. Do you think that aided you somewhat when you got into the league and were able to hit the ground running more if you'd have played at like a D2 school against lesser opponents in inverted?
I think so. I think the competition piece, not necessarily the stadium, that the crowd, maybe the crowd a little bit, but the competition piece. You go from high school where some of these guys are just guys. I say that loosely on football teams. Then you get to college where everybody on your college team, everyone is the best from their city or their state, right? So you're going to get better talent and different things like that. But I would say, playing in front of 80, 90,000 people, kind of prepares you a little bit, because college crowds in comparison to pro crowds are completely different. It's easily. I remember playing Penn State on a Saturday night game, and it was like 110,000 people. There's no NFL stadium that holds 110,000 people. So you kind of get prepped from that perspective, but just the competition, I think, is the biggest thing that continued to allow me to be able to play at a high level.
Yeah, Adam?
I have a question that I think came up on the Damashek podcast that you did a few years ago that I was listening to. Is it true that the hardest quarterback you ever had to bring down was real Mike Robb?
Yes, Mike Robb, man. He was a monster. Like, I don't know. What he's been able to do just in general from a career perspective, it's unheard of. Probably one of the few to ever do it. But for him to be a quarterback, then go to the pros and play fullback and all those different things, hard. But tackling him in college was one of those, like, whoa, you really are in the Big Ten right now. These like quarterbacks are running people over, like, you know what I mean? And he was just all muscle and just athletic and can throw it when he needed to, but would run you over. Mike Robb was definitely one of the hardest people that I've had to tackle in college, for sure.
I think he got Heisman consideration one year, didn't he, when he was at Penn State?
That might have been that same year. He was a monster.
So when you went to the league, you were a third-round pick in 2008 to the Lions, who then went 0-16. What was that like mentally as a rookie to get to?
It was tough, man. Going 0-16. But me being a rookie at the time, I was just happy to be in the league. And when I started realizing, like, I didn't realize we were 0-8, during that year, because I was just trying to figure things out. I'm like, okay, like, how do you fit into this whole situation? And then it started getting to the point where it's like, just don't be the reason why. Don't be the reason why you're losing these games, And then you start to hear murmurs of guys saying, we're going to have a new coach next year. I'm not used to that. That's all new to me. So, again, I got to put good film out there so the next coach can like me, And it was rough, but this was the ultimate thing. That same off season, you go hang out with your family back at home. You're going out and about, and that off season, I was sitting there looking at people, and people be like, "Oh, what do you do, or who do you play for?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I play ball, but I couldn't even really tell people I played for the Lions, because we just went 0-16, and people would start laughing like, "Didn't y'all just go 0-16?" I'm like, "But I play in the NFL. Like, that's an accomplishment in itself, So, but yeah, that off season kind of showed me how bad we really were.
So one of those players you played with in Detroit was Calvin Johnson, Megatron. I mean, some of these numbers on Looking at Pro Reference are just insane. Do you think he's somewhat undersold in when the GOAT conversation comes up?
He should. You know what's going to bite him in the tail is the fact that he just didn't play a long time. He didn't put up 12 years or whatever, some of these other greats have done. But in his 9-year run, I think it's only 9 years, 9 or 10 years, his 9-year run, I mean, you look at the numbers, it's incredible. And as far as a teammate, as a person, just amazing. I remember he was on the cover of the Madden after one of those years. And he literally went around to each player and signed a Madden game and handed like, "Hey, this is for you." I just had a newborn. He's like, "Hey, this is for your newborn." Like, just signed all 52 guys, a game. And I mean, a guy, and he never was like Calvin Johnson. Like, it was like the way you think he should act as a superstar. He was never that guy. He was just super calm, chill, talk to any and everybody. Just an amazing teammate. Comes to work every single day, ready to work. He was just awesome, man. And I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. But I can see people kind of making an excuse for why not, because he didn't play as long. But if you look at the numbers, and in that 8 or 9 year span, he dominated the game.
You've played with like loads of some of the best of their position, Thomas's, whatever. Yeah. At which point of the game or of the life as a player do you see that guy's like, "Oh, okay, I can see now why you are what you are"? Is it on the field? Is it off the field? I guess the cliche answer is going to be it's everything. It's the day-to-day. But is there like a light switch moment where you're watching every other receiver and then Calvin does something and you're like, what the hell has he just done? That's why you are what you are.
Calvin was the only one that while I was playing with him, I realized why he was great. Right. I seen one time, I think we were playing the Cowboys. He went up and grabbed the ball like twice over 3 guys. You know what I mean? And you see it in practice, but most times you see things in practice like, okay. But then you go do it in the game with 3 guys wrapped around you. You just somehow find another level of height to jump up to and go grab it. That's when it was like, wow, like this guy is legit. Now, after the fact, with all the other guys, Marshawn was another guy too. I would say Marshawn, the Arizona game, I think it was like a Thursday night game or something like that. He had a crazy, crazy run in Arizona. And I was like, oh, this is like the Beast Quake. Like, seeing it in person is completely different than seeing it on TV. So those 2 guys I would say are guys that in the moment I realize like they're great. But after the fact, the Earl Thomases, the Cam Chancellors, the Richard Shermans, you go back and look at film, you're like, no, like we had so much great talent, I guess it didn't kind of stick out in a sense. But after the fact, you start looking back, you're like, man, we had some dogs on our dang on defense.
Yeah, so we've done a 2013 rewatch on the pod the last few weeks, and that's exactly what it's been, especially with Marshall. And it's just, you kind of forget the names and the level of talent which was on that team, which obviously you were a massive part of. But to get to Seattle, obviously the 2013 free agency was when you left Detroit for Seattle. What was it, a tough decision to leave Detroit, or was it about betting on yourself and the numbers you put up in the first 4 or 5 years?
Well, it's tough, right? Because nobody, I don't care what sector of life, like what your job is, title, whatever, nobody likes uncertainty, right? Everybody wants to be comfortable, right? So most people are comfortable in the situation that they've typically been in for a long period of time. So Detroit drafted me. We had our lows, but we had times where we were good. I ended up working my way up to becoming a franchise player. So the more comfortable thing would have been to just sign with Detroit. We had Ndamukong Suh there still. We had some guys there still that we could have played well with. But honestly, Detroit didn't offer me a deal. They didn't offer me they didn't offer me anything after my last year. So going to the Seattle was almost like a no-brainer in a sense. There's some things that played a role in why I chose Seattle instead of somewhere else. But the more comfortable thing would have been to just stay in Detroit.
Adam?
So when you go from a team that, you just said when you get to college, everyone's the best player in the city. So obviously when you get to the NFL, that's like that times 1,000, right? So you've gone from the Lions, who are not doing so well, to the Seahawks. This is a two-part question. We've all seen The Last Dance recently and like the pressure that Michael Jordan put on his teammates or whatever. Is there like a mental thing that makes the Seahawks versus the Lions? Because everyone's talented, right? So what is it that separates that out? And the second part is, after the 2012 season, everyone knows that the Seahawks need pass rush. Like they lose the Atlanta game because of lack of pass rush. And you come in and Mike Bennett comes in. So in a way, you're probably seen as like, this is the solution that's going to help us get to, the next level. What added pressure does that bring on? So two questions there.
Oh, okay. Well, let me finish the first one. From a mentality standpoint, I think there is a difference, but it starts with up top, right? Ownership, management. I would say the biggest difference that I noticed and thinking back about it is ownership. I would say the difference there is Paul Allen I don't want to say he didn't necessarily care for the money or anything like that, but which he probably didn't. I would say is more of like he didn't have a problem investing into the program. He didn't have a problem investing into the players. They had, when I first got to Seattle, they had some of the most state-of-the-art stuff there. They had this thing that you see everybody on this recovery tip and everybody on having sports science department on their teams. Seattle led the way on all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say from an ownership standpoint, he was okay with spending extra money on stuff to make the team overall, the players overall better, right? So that was one thing. But then you look at Coach Carroll in comparison to, I had Coach Schwartz, who was a great coach as well, but the mentalities were different, right? Coach Carroll was more on the, I know people play better when they feel free and they can be themselves in a sense, right? The rest of football is more on the militant type side of things, right? Where you can only do it this way. This is the only way you can have success is, you can't look left. You can only go right, type thing. Like it's by the book. And Coach Carroll went against that, where it was, again, hey, you guys can do whatever you need to do, whatever makes you comfortable. But when you cross these lines, just know you're here to work. And everybody understood that, and everybody went out and dominated. So I would say it starts with up top in the thought process. Now, as far as for the second part of your question, surprisingly that I remembered it, pressure as far as for coming here and thinking that we were the last puzzle pieces. No, because in our reality, the first 6 games of that season, myself and Mike B, we both were looking at each other like, did we make the right choice coming here? Because we weren't starters anymore, wasn't playing as much anymore. And as an athlete, like that's more than money, right? Mm-hmm. Playing time, being able to perform and all those different things. So we weren't getting that. So there's a couple times where we both had a conversation like, I don't know if we made the right decision coming here, because we just weren't playing as much. But then once we got past that stage of like, man, the hell with that. We should go out here and ball out. Whenever we do get our opportunity, we just go and play. And we ended up being, yes, the missing pieces. I think when they signed us, they expected it to be that way, but we weren't thinking of it that way. We were just like, we just got to come in and prove ourselves in front of all these great players. And that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a big brotherhood that you and Mike Bennett hold from that time, which is kind of obviously passed on to like your post-playing career and for Mike Bennett out since he's left Seattle. How quickly did that brotherhood build or grow over the last 6-7 years?
I would say it's because we both came into a new situation together, right? We're both the new guys in the locker room. We're both trying to figure things out. And what's crazy is we both were the top 2 free agents coming out that year, and somehow we ended up on the same team, which never happens, right? And so we knew of each other. We were battling against each other, didn't even know each other, but we knew of each other from stats. And every week I'd look up at his highlights and vice versa. And so we knew of each other from that standpoint. But I think it was more of we were coming to a new city. He was here for a brief time, but don't know the coaches, don't know the system, don't know the locker room, don't know the guys. And we just gravitated towards each other because we were in the same space. And then our family and our wives actually, my wife and his wife are really close as well. So that just made it, easier for us to all kind of get along. And then we've just grown since then. We've had so much success with each other. It was a running joke for a couple of years where, I'd get a sack fumble. He was always there to scoop and score. And he scored a couple touchdowns off of some of my sack fumbles and different things like that. So that just continued to just blossom, and we just continue to grow on the football field. And then off the football field, it was more of we just had a respect for one another and where we came from and how we thought and different things like that. And we also balanced each other out, kind of yin and yang type of thing, because he's the loud mouth. I was kind of quiet. So he kind of brought a little bit of it out of me, and I kind of calmed him down a little bit. So, we've grown a lot. We talk every day. That's my guy.
Adam?
Well, if you talk every day, can you get him back in Seattle, just for 1 year? We could do it a little.
If it was his choice,
on there.
If it's his choice, he'd be back already. I think it's going to be more of a management type thing. If they, feel like he could come in and make some things happen. He's a veteran as well, so I know cap hits and different things like that kind of play a role. So we'll see. But I think if it was his choice, I think he would love to come back to Seattle.
Yeah. That's interesting you said about the style and the system and not playing the first 6 games, because Seattle typically isn't like a team, defensively heralded, but they're not the kind of team that is going to let you go out and get 15, 16 sacks. And obviously these guys get paid, you get paid on your numbers. Like people are talking about Jadeveon Clowney now saying, yeah, he's good, but he only had 3 or 4 sacks. Now that's a lot in due to the system. And I kind of feel sorry for the guy because the reductive element is, well, he only got so many sacks. How hard is that to reconcile as a player? And do you speak to the coaches about that?
It's hard because, and then I came into a system where it was brand new. Like when I was in Detroit, I was strictly a left defensive end. And the Seattle Seahawks defense, you got to move both sides depending on the call. So even that piece right there was different for me. And then, I was used to playing outside of the tight end instead of head up on tight ends. And, just different techniques and whatnot. So it's hard, but as a professional, they pay you to adapt too, So I had to learn the game quicker. I had to learn that technique a little bit more. And then once I did, I became decent at it, but it's hard initially. And we'll put a bug in the D coordinator's ear, like, hey, you can bump me out to a different technique. I'm more productive in that way if you do that. But then he's like, okay, what about the other 10 guys? How does that affect the other 10 guys? I'm like, screw those other 10 guys. I need to get my numbers. But once you understand that everything is like a chain, you need it a certain way. And then you win in a lot of games. It kind of, it's like, it's okay. Because it's work. Having 15 sacks is great, but if you go 1 for 15 for the year, or having 8 sacks and you win the Super Bowl, I mean, I'm taking 8 sacks and winning the Super Bowl every time.
So entering the season, the 2013 season, how did the team or the locker room kind of feel they were pegged nationally? Obviously, because there's a lot of talk around Russell Wilson walking off the field in Atlanta 9-10 months earlier, saying next year it'll be our year, but it didn't seem to really compute until Halloween onwards in the 2013 season, where all the chat that the players were putting out into the atmosphere was starting to be backed up by just overwhelmingly impressive performances and numbers from pretty much every player on the team.
Like I said, for me, it took 6 weeks before I bought all in, right? Might be probably about the same time frame a little bit. New pieces. Every season is different. I don't care how you slice and dice. I don't care how many players come back the following year. Every season is different because one injury changes everything up, right? And football is 100% chance you're going to get hurt every time you step out there. But I would say you know, that defense, though, I mean, if you look at the stats, the turnovers, the scoring on defense, the, you know, forced fumbles, everything. Like, if you can't win with that, there's a problem, you know? and that was what it was. And then you had a hell of a running game in Marshawn Lynch. Obviously, Russell Wilson doing what he does. You know, I would say probably right around week 7, week 8. You know what? For me, it was the Houston game, which was week 5, maybe week 4. There was a play, and you guys will remember it, the Sherman interception at the end of the game. So what's crazy, and I literally just talked to Sherman Cam about this last night. We practiced that play 3 times, and it happened that way all 3 times. And it was Cam coming off of a blitz, forcing the throw, Sherm just finding a way to get in front of it and catching the rock and taking it to the house. And we practiced that play like on Thursday and Friday. The same exact stuff happened. Then it happened in the game, and I was like, oh. That was the first time I've ever seen a play actually play out the way you practice it in the game. And that's when I was like, oh, this is legit. Like, there's no way. Like, if we can call out our plays and make them happen when we say we're going to make them happen, there's no way. You know, so that's when I realized how serious we were as a team.
Yeah.
And that must make you feel like these coaches know exactly what they're doing as well.
I think it's hand in hand, though. I think it's coaches knowing their personnel, but also you have to have the right personnel. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care how great of a coach you are. If you don't have the right personnel, you can't make it happen.
Sure.
And as a player, I don't care how great you think you are. If you don't have the right coaches making the right calls, you won't be as productive.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we had Mike Robinson on the podcast, and he said in the build-up to 48 that him and Marshawn knew 3 days into the prep for the Super Bowl that the Seahawks were going to win. Yeah. Was it like that for you in the defensive room? If not, when did you know that that night in New Jersey was going to go our way?
The Monday after the San Francisco game, we came in. We briefly watched the San Francisco game, and we started watching Denver on Monday or Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. I'm not sure which day, but whatever the first day was, we started breaking down film. I kid you not. We all looked at each other and was like, oh, we're about to dominate these dudes. I kid you not. But then that was just the D-line room. But then when we left the D-line room, we walked into the locker room. Everybody kind of still had had the same look on their face, like they're not as good as they say they are. And we seen some little things that we know we could expose them on. Up front up front, we were like, there's no way that these guys can handle all 4 of us. And from the very first snap, we put on. But I would say that first week of watching film, obviously you don't want to come out and say nothing crazy, and then also the media wasn't giving our defense any credit. You know what I mean? Like, that was just, we're sitting here like, are you guys seeing the same stuff we're seeing? Like, this is not – they were great. They did some great things, don't get me wrong, but we seen some flaws there where we felt like we just had a stronger hand.
Adam?
So one of my favorite videos is Lynch talking about his first beast Quake. And he says, in the huddle, he's like, okay, there's going to be problems. And he sees the lineup and is like, okay, there's problems, and breaks the first tackle. And he talks through the whole play. And I'm fascinated about like the mindset of a pro athlete. And I'm thinking about the pick six that Malcolm Smith gets, because it's your play ultimately.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that play, like from call to like what it feels like when you line up, or is that play, or is there another play that like sticks every bit of it in your mind, like in slow motion? Because I'm fascinated about how the mindset of an athlete slows down in the biggest moments when you know exactly what's going to happen.
The game definitely slows down, but you have to have played a lot for it to get to that point. But I would say, like the first play of the Super Bowl, right? All I remember, first off, I got to start the game off, right? So that, like, now I'm excited because we weren't sure. We're like, maybe the nickel package is going to start, because that package usually doesn't start. We didn't start all season long. So we're like, they're a throwing team. All right, they're probably going to come out with our pass rushers. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I have a whole checklist in my head that has to happen in a less than 3-second span, whether it's, look at the play clock, look at the center, look at my tackle. I have to do all these things before I get my stance, like to give me my keys, basically, before I get my stance to know what's going on. So I get my stance, and I'm looking at the center, but I can still see the quarterback. And Peyton Manning's the type of quarterback, he gets into his set, he gets into underneath the center early so he can read everything out. So the D-line is typically on taking a knee because he takes forever to snap the ball. So during that process, I know this already. So I'm kind of watching, and I see him step up to like kind of audible out of it. But I'm also seeing the center, he doesn't like relax. So usually when they're audible and the center relaxes to hear the call, he doesn't relax. So now I'm looking like, oh, he's probably about to snap the ball, and Peyton's stepping up. So I see him snap the ball, and Peyton's stepping up. I'm like, oh, this is a fumble. Now I have to just find the ball, you know. So I see it. It kind of rolls off to my side, to the left a little bit. So now I'm chasing it. And I'm like, oh, I'm about to give me a touchdown. Then I see Moreno come out of nowhere and get on it. So I tag off on him. That's actually – no, that's not the play. I thought that was the play up there. But that's another play against them in the Super Bowl. But so it just slowed down a little bit to the point where I could see – I seen it's going to be a fumble. Now let's try to get this touchdown. Obviously, now once I see Moreno getting away, I'm like, all right, I need to be the first to tag off on him. And then come to find out it was like the fastest score in Super Bowl history.
Yeah. What in the second half when the game is obviously after Percy's score, it's 29-0. What's the sideline like for those 2 hours or so?
So initially when we come out at a halftime, I'm telling guys like, hey man, the game is not over. This is Peyton Manning. He's a legend. Like, there's nothing for him to go score 14 points the first 2 drives. Like, let's stay on top of our game. Let's not take our foot off the gas pedal. Then Percy comes out and scores on the first drive. I'm like, yeah, I think we got this. I think we got this now. So one touchdown definitely made a difference. Mm. And so on the sideline, now it's just more of a like, let's pad our stats. Like, let's try to get some sacks here. Let's try to, continue to stay on top of it. Now we know they have to throw the ball. Like, those are my type of games, when I know they that's all they're going to do. So it was just more of all right, we know what they have to do. Let's continue to stay on top of them.
So in a game like that, can you just tell that you have the beating of whichever guy you want to go up against? Like, can you see it in them that they're done?
No, because you always have to have that level of respect. I think when you lose that piece of respect, then that's when you get got. So no, I never go in a game, no matter how bad I think the film is, how bad I might think the guy is. You go into it with respect and understanding that he's a pro for a reason. You know what I mean? So I don't. I never go, even during the game. After the fact, I'm like, yeah, he was trash or something like that. But never during the game. I've never never done that. I did it one time and I got my ass whooped. So I hadn't done it since.
So what Adam posted this up that we were going to have you on the pod, and one of the guys wanted to know what the party was like that night and who was the one starting all the shenanigans in New York that night.
The parties. So usually there's a team party afterwards. Excuse me, I need to plug up my computer. I didn't realize it was low. Let me move it over. Sorry. But I can explain while I'm doing it. But the party, so you get the party. Oh, we'll have to put it in my lap. Sorry. Charge this thing. All right, here we go. So you get the party, and you have a party like at your team hotel. And at the time, Paul Allen was performing. I guess he didn't want to pay for somebody else to perform or whatever. So we walked in. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna hard pass on this, right?" So a lot of the D line, we all left and went into the city, went into New York. Next thing we know, we're partying with like Diddy and all these A-listers. They're all coming up to our table like, man, hell of a game, all this craziness. And it was a great time. I think we didn't get back in easily 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, we're out all night. And then our plane was leaving at like 8 or something like that. So we got in, we were already packed, grabbed some of our stuff and went straight to the airport. But you can tell everybody had a great night because the first hour. So mind you, now this is in the middle of January or February. The game, it was somewhat warm. It was like 70 degrees or something crazy like that, 65, 70 degrees in New York. Typically, snowstorm or something like that. The next day, a blizzard comes through. So Everyone gets snowed in. Like, my family gets snowed in. We're on the tarmac for like 3 hours, 4 hours, like just hoping we're going to get out. And the first hour of that, everybody is going crazy on the plane. Like, we're just still having a great time. Guys are running around. One of the guys decided he wants to go streaking on the airplane, just doing laps butt naked, you know, we're champions, you know, just going like just a great time. And then like within an hour, about another hour and a half, everybody's passed out. We wake up like, wait up, we're still in New York? Like, what's going on? Like, that we were supposed to leave like 4 hours ago. But it was a great time.
There was talk that the game might have been cancelled because of the weather, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it was, they weren't sure if it was going to happen.
We were concerned. Yeah, we were concerned. I don't know about it being canceled, but I know we were concerned about like just it being freezing and just a lot of snow because it was New York Open, you know. But somehow I remember walking out during warm-ups like, wait up. It's only like, this doesn't feel cold at all. I don't need sleeves. I don't need anything. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great day.
So a few days later, obviously, it was the parade, which Adam was somewhere in the masses that day as well.
Yeah, I was there. I couldn't.
That was nuts. That was a great time.
Insanely cold, wasn't it, that day?
That was freezing.
That was cold. I felt so bad because I had my son on the back of the big Humvee with me. I'm like, man, it's a Super Bowl, bring my family. My wife and them were in the bus, and my son got on the Humvee with me. And like 30 minutes into it, I started apologizing to him. Like, I am so sorry. It is freezing out here. And it was like a freaking 2 hour, 3 hour type of ride or something crazy like that. And it was just so cold. I enjoyed like the first 30 minutes. After that, it was like, all right, let's end this thing now. It's freezing out here.
So obviously it wasn't he didn't take the starring role in the Super Bowl as he did in other games, but Russell Wilson, obviously played with Matt Stafford in Detroit. In comparison to Stafford, what was Russell Wilson like? And also, was he that leader the first day you saw him, kind of thing, in 2013? And because obviously he was still in the extension somewhat in 2013, wasn't he?
I would say that here's the difference between the two. The level of pressure between the two were different from this standpoint. When Matt Stafford got to Detroit, he had to be a leader. He had to come in and set precedents and show that he's here to change things. You know, it's basically like a new sheriff's in town, right, type situation. Like, he had to be that guy because we were just coming off an 0-16 year. You know, he had to be that shining star. I think with Russell Wilson, his first couple of years, he didn't have that type of pressure, right? He had a locker room full of alpha males, full of guys that want to win, full of guys that know what it takes to win, that are great. So he had a chance to learn from so many different guys, right? In comparison to Matt, it's like, who I'm going to learn from? Y'all just went 0-16. like, what am I going to learn, you know? So I think that's the difference between the two. Both are great quarterbacks. Both are great leaders. Both of them just had different routes as far as for who had to be a leader early on in their career in comparison to the other.
Yeah, Adam?
We have 49 written down here, but I don't want to talk about that because it's been done to death. But speaking of the Wilson learning curve, the game before that, the championship game against Green Bay, probably the craziest game I've ever watched. And at which point in a game like that do you – and a player's always going to say, you know, we always believed and we kept believing. But let's be honest, there's some point where, you know, the fourth pick or whatever, you lose all hope. But you still managed to rally. Did you ever lose hope? And at that point, who rallies them saying, look, guys, we have to, like, you know, there's 2 minutes of the season left. Let's just do what we can.
That game is when I personally found Russell Wilson to be, like, I'm not surprised at all the success he has right now. That game was the game where it was like, wow, this dude is legit. Mm-hmm. And from this perspective, he threw like 4 picks or 5 picks or something crazy. It was crazy. A lot. And he literally, after that 5th pick, he comes to the sideline. He's like, guys, all I need is an opportunity. All I need is one opportunity and we're going to win this thing. He kept saying it. He's like, all I need is one. And, you know, most times than not, most guys are like, dog, 5 interceptions, bro. Like, come on. And I know for myself, right, if I jump off sides twice in a game, it's a high possibility the rest of the game, my get off is going to be terrible because I'm going to be nervous about jumping off sides, right? So I probably won't have a sack that game. I probably I'm just like trying not to mess up. But for a man to throw 5 interceptions and have the confidence to come look at all his teammates in the eyes and tell you all I need is one chance, and then that next drive go out there and dominate the way he did, it just shows you how much, like, from a mental strength standpoint, have nothing but respect for him, because that's hard. That is extremely hard, to be in a headspace where you truly believe you have an opportunity, no matter how terrible you played the first 3 quarters. You know what I mean? So for me, like, and then in that game, I can honestly say my first 2 years in Seattle, I never doubted any games. Like, I always felt like we were in every game. I didn't care how it started. I don't care what the score was going into the fourth quarter. I always felt like we were in every single game. And that game was no different. I remember us running out there for like the last drive in maybe the fourth quarter, even maybe overtime. No, fourth quarter. Mike B looked at me, he's like, bro, all we got to do is stop him twice. And, we give the quarterback a chance. And guess what he did? He would have got 2 tackles for losses back to back, So, like, random, like, I say random, but different guys just showed up at different times when we needed them. You know what I mean? And that's what made that team so special.
Yeah. So when you came in, there was Red Bryant and Chris Clemens, who were already in your positions pretty much. But then when you and Mike B stepped aside, obviously in different circumstances, there was Jaron Reed had to step up into that senior role. Was bringing that leadership out of guys like Jaron Reed and other guys on that defense important to you, or important to the team, that you could, like, show them the ropes that this was how you're going to lead, kind of thing? Or is that just not a consideration?
No, that's definitely the way. I mean, and it's not like that on every team. It's not like that on every team where veteran players really care to bring their young players along, because in all reality, those guys are there to take your job, right? So it's very rare. But the thing is, we understood that we're only as strong as our weakest link. I got this season to show you how to get up to par to try to win a championship, although I know next year you'll probably be taking my job, no matter whatever the case is. So for me, it was like, I'm confident enough in my game that I'll outwork you. Like, I'm confident in that piece, right? I'm confident in understanding my experience plays more of a role than where you're at right now. So I wasn't ever in a space where I felt like, oh my gosh, Frank Clark's here to take my job. Every single year I was in the NFL, they drafted a defensive lineman, you know what I mean, at my position. So it wasn't new to me. But what I wanted for those young players was, I wanted them to develop quickly. I wanted them to understand what a championship defense looks like, because that's what we had. So it was never a space where I didn't want to tell them the truth. And to this day, all of them will tell you, like, hey, man, we appreciate what you did. You might have been a jerk at the time, or whatever the case may be, but now we're leading the charge for our team, right? And they understand it. Now it's kind of like a child, right? You tell them enough, after a while they start realizing, oh, dang, daddy was right. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same concept. I don't want to say I'm their dad or nothing like that, but it's kind of the same concept from the standpoint of, like, putting them through the ringer, but also teaching them the ropes, because I wanted them to be successful as well.
Yeah. Adam?
You unfortunately kind of walked off the field in an Indianapolis game, kind of innocuous, and that was unfortunately the last we ever saw of Cliff on the field. Like, how difficult a decision was that? I know we spoke briefly about it, that you kind of were, you knew that was it and you were pretty much at peace with that. But just talk us through, if you're okay with it, just like briefly that process of how that goes from hit to almost where you are now, I guess.
It's crazy, man, because, I get that question all the time. And for me, it's it's so crazy, because that I tell players this all the time, is it can end in a snap of a finger, right? It's a play I did 1,000 times in my career. It's a play, of course, I'm chasing the quarterback down, the one thing I really love doing, right? And I'm chasing the quarterback down, and, a last effort type of thing, try to swipe his legs, perfect storm, hits me up underneath my chin, got a herniated disc in my neck, could have been paralyzed from the whole situation, right? And I remember just getting back up after the injury, and I'm like, oh, it's just a stinger. I've had this before, but usually you only have it in one arm. I had it in both arms. So I had no feeling in my arms or whatever. And I'm shaking. If you watch the film, I'm shaking my hands because I'm trying to get, feeling back in my fingers and whatnot. And I go through the whole process, go to the hospital that night. And this is how close of a team we are. So I go to the hospital that night, and happens in the first quarter or something. Yeah, it happens in the first quarter. Halftime comes around. Everybody's blowing me up. Mike B FaceTimes me. This is at halftime during the game. They're FaceTiming me like, hey, bro, like, where you at, man? I need your help. Like, I need you to help me break down this, that, and the third. Like, where you at? You know, just checking out. How are you doing? You know, all these different things or whatever. And, you know, like, hey, we're coming to the hospital right after the game type stuff. And so I'm going through all that. And in the midst of it, though, I'm not thinking my career is over with yet. I'm still thinking like, oh, I'm fine. But the doctors kept asking all these different random questions or whatnot. And then the doctor tells me kind of what's going on. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, and when he tells me, he's like, most people don't walk in with this injury. They're paralyzed from this injury. That's when it struck in my head like, oh, this might really be done. Like, I might really be done playing ball. And I went through a process for about 3 months. I went to like the top 5 best special next in America. Because they say get a second opinion. I only got 5 because I wanted to make sure what people were telling me was correct, and you know, hoping another doctor really was going to say, no, I think you'll be fine, you know, type thing. But all of them kept saying, hey, no, we wouldn't let you back out there. You know, you got to have surgery, all these different things. So I have a plate in my neck about this big, a titanium plate in my neck. And, you know, in searching with, you know, I get to doctor number 3. I'm like, okay, is he going to tell me the same thing? So once I started seeing some of these other doctors, I started coming at peace with it. Like, all right, it might actually be over with. If it is, you know, it was a hell of a run. It could have been worse. This could have happened year 1, you know, but it happened year 10 after you got to accomplish so many different things. So, and on top of that, it could have been worse, you know. So I looked at it like that. So I was at ease with that piece quicker than I guess most would have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've seen DJ Fluker in the last few weeks since obviously he was released by the team and found his way to Baltimore. Walter Jones said to me and Adam, to put a bit of a name drop in there, he said that he regards Seattle as his home. What is it about Seattle or the Pacific Northwest in particular which made it so easy to settle and, in your case, set your family up there for the foreseeable?
It's opportunities. It's winning a championship. It's the environment. The people here are great. You know, you get to meet so many different people. Like, it hasn't happened to me, but it's possible, right? You can be in a restaurant, you might bump into Bill Gates. You can be in a restaurant, you might bump into Bezos. Like, you can be in a meeting room, meeting with some execs, and, you know, the CEO of Zillow comes out or something like that. Like, you just get to bump into all these innovative people that motivate you to continue to want to keep doing better outside of football, you know? And I think that was the coolest thing. Like, when I got hurt, I had like 3 or 4 different companies, their CEOs reach out to me like, hey, we want to meet with you, want to see, you know, if this is something that you're interested in, like possibly create a job for me type thing, you know? And, you know, I didn't realize when I was playing how impactful a Super Bowl means, a championship means, to what it means to a city, and how it just rejuvenates a city from the economic standpoint, but also just people really like got a lot. That was like an excitement. That was a highlight to their day. And no matter what economic class you're in, like, it was a highlight to their day to watch us go out and perform for their city. So just that, and again, you know, just the people you get to meet, man, the opportunities you get to be a part of. They're so innovative out here, man. It's only right that I moved out here and just, you know, just soak it all in.
And what are you doing now? So obviously you got your foundation, which you'd love to hear about, and I know you're into your fashion and stuff like that. So what's taking up your time now? You've done some media work.
Yeah, so obviously the foundation, Cliff Avril Family Foundation, that's my baby. I want to keep that going, doing a lot of different things. We actually just donated $50,000 to some COVID relief stuff here in Seattle. We wanted to, because a lot of kids aren't going to school. A lot of kids get their food from school. Like, that's where they anticipate their meals from school. So we wanted to make sure these kids were still eating during that time off. And then we got the foundation. I'm doing some media stuff. I had my own radio show that I was doing for a couple of years, and now I'm looking to transition and hopefully do some other stuff in the media space. Still trying to figure that piece out. And also, you mentioned fashion. Of course, I love, you know, fashion, but I've been doing real estate for 5-6 years now. So now I have a little bit more time to dive deeper into it instead of being more on the passive side. I actually want to be, a part of the process and different things like that. So got some real estate stuff that I've been working on. I'd say more in depth in the last, 6-7 months.
Yeah, and obviously one part of that media was you spent a few weeks on our coverage over here on Sky Sports. How was that? How was that experience working with Neil and the guys?
Neil is awesome, man. I love Neil, man. He is so funny. He makes it easy to be around, easy to work with. I did not know so I've done a couple different tours in London for the NFL, and I did not know how much they love football, one, but then they love the doggone Seahawks. Don't understand how or why. It's the furthest doggone state or city from London. But I guess the weather is pretty similar. That's about it. But there's so many Seahawk fans out there, and it's just a great time, man. I love getting out there and just hearing how much knowledge people have of the game as well. Like, a lot of fans out there have more knowledge of football than the majority of the fans out here.
Yeah.
You mentioned obviously real estate. Do you think Brentford is a place that you might consider setting up? I know that's where they put you up in the Sky studio. Now, I'm so focused on London that Stuart doesn't live here, but I'm like, it's London or nothing. But Brentford does not qualify as that. I'm not having any of that.
Yeah, that was a little fur out there. That was a little different. A little different.
And obviously, if next time you're over, you have to try and do the work on Adam's Uber rating that Walter Jones managed to get away with a couple of years ago, Adam.
Yeah, he dropped my Uber rating by 2 full points. I was singing.
Did he?
That was not good. But look, Cliff, I know that we're kind of pushing you for time. Just very, very quickly, you're working with Alton Robson a little bit, who's been signed by the Seahawks. What do you reckon we can expect from him, and what kind of work have you done with him?
Oh man, Alton is awesome, man. I got the opportunity to start working with him. He was training here in Seattle at a spot called Ford Sports, and I just started my new company as well. Another thing that I'm doing, Sack 360. I just got to be on the move. But Sack 360 is basically a training service that I do with the professionals. I've been doing it the last few years. I've been training Frank Clark, Jaron Reed, Quentin Jefferson, all those guys, and I'm happy that all three of them have went on to do some great things. And I started working with Tracy at Ford Sport, and Alden was one of the kids that they had there. And I just started training them. I was training them for about 2 months, twice a week, and just really giving them little tidbits on the game as a D lineman, as a professional. And what I like about him is the first thing I look for with young players is who asks questions. Like, a lot of these young players come into the league and feel like they have all the answers already because they've been, good their whole lives, and they think football is only football and all this other stuff. But the kids that ask the most questions tend to be the ones that last the longest because they're open-minded. They know they don't know everything, and they just want to just keep learning. And that's the one thing I was impressed with Alden is he wasn't afraid of asking questions. He would ask, some of them may seem dumb to me, but I didn't know that as a rookie, right? So to see him asking questions, to see him go out to the Senior Bowl and dominate, to see him go to the Combine and do his thing, and then to get drafted to the team that I played for and the same city that I'm in, right? So we can keep this thing going. We can continue to keep working together and continue to, help him out. Now I know the system like the back of my hand. So I'm excited for him because he does present a lot of different things for the team. He can play inside, he can play out. I can see him doing some special things this season for the team.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film session thing you did for the Seahawks as well. Darryl Taylor, that was really, who also, like you in college, he made the move from linebacker to end as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he went from outside linebacker to defensive end. And I was going to say he's wearing my number. Is he? Yeah, I think he is wearing 56.
Yeah.
I think he's wearing 56. But that transition. But it helps out tremendously being able to see things standing up. So when you put your hand in the dirt, you still kind of have a vision of what's going on, and it allows you to play a little bit quicker as a defensive end as well. So that's pretty cool. I mean, he's an athlete. I expect him to do some real good things too.
That's really cool. Cliff, massively do appreciate you taking your time out of your day to, as I said at the start, to talk to us two idiots. As behalf of all UK Seahawks and Seahawks fans, just want to thank you for the part you played in one of the coolest few months of our sport in watching lives, I think, and obviously the plays you made in that title game against the 49ers, getting the fumble
Thank you.
on Cap. It's massively appreciate that, and massively appreciate jumping on with me and Adam.
Yeah, I remember you said when you were over here that you were thinking about, maybe a few months in London at a time, and we'll hold you to that, and then we'll stop bugging. Then we'll stop bugging you on Twitter if you do that.
Well, see, it depends on what Sky Sports does. So we might have to talk to Neil. I'm not sure what Sky Sports situation is with the league right now, or if they're going to be running the game. I'm not sure from that perspective. But if they have Sky Sports and they're going to be covering the league, count me in. I'm there.
Look forward to it.
Cool.
Thanks so much, man.
Cool. Yeah, really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Keep well, man. Speak to you soon.
Have a good one, bro.
All the best. Bye.
Later.